Welcome to this Better Business Web Seminar. I am Emmanuel Constantino and I'm the President of the Bondi District's Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that we are each joining from various locations and I am from New Zealand, and acknowledge that I am joining this call from the lands of the Manu Whenua of Tahuna, Nai Tahu Tēnā Cotter. I would also like to acknowledge the Waverley Council and the Bondi District Chamber of Commerce operate on the lands of the Pidigal, Birabaragal, and Gadigal people, and acknowledge elders both past and present. Welcome everybody to the Better Business webinar. Today's webinar is hosted by Waverley Council and the Bondi District Chamber of Commerce and funded by the New South Wales Small Business Commission as part of the Small Business Month. Small Business Month is the only festival of activities dedicated to supporting small businesses across New South Wales. The festival aims to facilitate the development of new ideas and skills for small business owners and entrepreneurs to innovate, collaborate, and thrive. We appreciate that it has been a very difficult time for small businesses who have faced an array of challenges over the past few years, including the ongoing impacts of COVID-19. Staff shortages, inflation, and the rising cost of living. In addition to this, we understand that there is an increased regularity, political and social drivers to reduce their environmental footprint, including the New South Wales Sustainable Waste and Materials Strategy 2041 and the New South Wales Net Zero Plan. The purpose of today's webinar is to reframe these challenges as opportunities for small businesses to adapt, innovate, and thrive, and to demonstrate clear and practical pathways to manage your environmental impacts and, most importantly, improve profitability. Today, we have a panel of sustainable experts who will provide practical advice on how to save money by reducing your waste, emissions, and environmental impact, as well as funding opportunities to support your sustainable upgrades. The Bondi District Chamber of Commerce represents over 6,000 businesses in Waverley, and our mission is to educate, advocate, connect, and help our business community grow. Waverley Council has set quite ambitious environmental targets in the 5th Environmental Action Plan. This includes sustainability leadership across council's operations and supporting community-led environmental actions. Targets relevant to today's discussions include net zero community emissions by 2035, 80% increase in recovery rate from all waste streams by 2030, and supporting the community transitions to circular economy. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our host for the webinar, Sarah Wilson. Sarah Wilson is a multi-New York Times and Amazon best-selling author, podcaster, thought leader, minimalist, philanthropist, and climate advisor. She founded the international I Quit Sugar movement and wrote the international bestsellers I Quit Sugar and First We Make the Best Beautiful, and has been ranked at the top 200 influential authors in the world. Sarah is an author of 11 cookbooks that sell in 52 countries, and her most recent book, The One Wild and Precious Life, won the 2021 US Gold Nautilus Award. Sarah's podcast, Wild, continues to the conversation started in The One Wild and Precious Life through deep conversations with philosophers, creatives, poets, scientists on the big questions that haunt us. Sarah now dedicates her time and energy to driving a global conversation on sustainability and climate change, as well as resilience, living a life of value and challenge leaderships. Thank you, Sarah. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. And I have to confess, I have really bad internet connection. So I'm really going to have to apologise in advance. I'm doing this on my phone. We'll see how that goes. All of you live in the eastern suburbs, I imagine, apart from you, Emmanuel, who's speaking to us from New Zealand. So you know how it goes. It goes in and out. I have been a climate agitator and climate engager and educator and activist for quite some time. So I'm so thrilled to be part of this project. Some of you listening might be aware that I co-founded the BYO Cup campaign campaign this time last year with Sondra, who runs Brew Cafe up in North Bondi. We started that together, and I'm absolutely thrilled to see that Waverley Council is running it for a second year, kicking off tomorrow, I believe. Now, one thing I just want to say as we all get settled, ready for today's discussion, is that there's, in this debate, not enough emphasis put on the amount of change, yes, that's going on in terms of switching us to a more green mindset, to a more sustainable future. Yes, we know about these changes. And here in New South Wales, we have the Sustainable Waste and Materials Strategy for 2041 and the New South Wales Net Zero Plan that is being enacted. But what we don't hear enough about is the opportunities. The first thing I think of is that there's an opportunity for all of us who get involved early and get engaged, roll up our sleeves and do the right stuff. We get the opportunity to be on the right side of history. We get to be part of a movement. We also, when we run first, we get to be part of the savings. There are incredible savings to be made, and our speakers will be talking about this for small businesses, but also for consumers in New South Wales and in the Waverley Council. Government and industries are starting to offer incentives and other opportunities such as subsidies that will actually get you up and going in this space so that you can then in the long run save a lot of money. There's all kinds of reasons to get engaged. Waverley, of course, is also stepping up with this talk and a bunch of other incentives to help small businesses like yours be part of this movement. So the speakers today will be cutting to the chase on all of this. They'll be sharing hacks and very practical tips to saving money, energy and time, how to get involved in a circular economy and have it working in your business and working for you and your bottom line. How to, for instance, get funding and financing for your sustainability projects. And yes, there is help to be had there. As I say, there are a lot of people wanting small businesses to be doing this kind of thing, to be on the front foot, I should say. So there's a win-win scenario going on here, and I'm loving that Waverley Council is themselves on the front foot right now. Now, one last thing that I will share, and I say this often in my own work, care begets care. And so when we see a small business like a cafe in our area or a restaurant, or it might even be, I don't know, a shoe mending business, when we see them caring, it begets a certain amount of care and happiness and engagement ourselves. Jonathan Haidt, you may have heard of, he's done quite a lot of work in this area, and he has found that when we just watch from a distance somebody doing something great, it actually brings a happiness hit greater than any antidepressant available on this planet. And it actually connects us to that business or that person in a very intimate and engaged way. Now, a tiny bit of housekeeping, and I think Waverley Council on the other end, the people in the background, will switch this to a poll. There's a poll that they're inviting you to fill in. It's a really simple one. Essentially, if you can just tell us who you are and how you heard about this webinar. Okay, so if you can fill that in right now, it should be up on your screen, and you can, on your Zoom, and you can just click where you need to click. And also the third question is, what industry do you work in? Okay. The other bit of housekeeping, don't need to tell you where the toilets are, don't need to tell you to turn the phone off. It's not that kind of chat. But we will have in the chat, the Waverley team will put up links to the various speakers and anything else that pops up. So don't feel like you've got to frantically write notes or be crossing over to Safari and looking things up. That information will be in the chat. Now, if you have questions, and we will have 15 minutes at the end for Q&A, if you could post those questions in the Q&A, and feel free to go in there and have a look and see if there's other people asking this question that you want to ask, do a thumbs up. Then I'll know that is certainly a question to put to the panel at the end of this session. The final thing I'll say is that I will have to be the hardcore timekeeper. All of you are busy. Our speakers are going to be kept to a fairly tight regime in that respect. And look, you know, I might get annoyed and have to jump in and just remind people that their 9 to 10 minutes is up. Hopefully we won't hit that, and I'm sure all the information will be absolutely fascinating for all of you. Okay, so when you're finished with that poll, you can press close and we can move to our first speaker. Now, I'd like to introduce Annie Jiang, who is the CEO of Go Circular, a for-purpose organisation that helps communities and businesses like yours enact a circular economy. So she shows you how it can be done. She's on the MBA Advisory Board at the University of Newcastle. She's a non-executive director at Dantia and non-executive director at the Circular Economy Living Lab. And she's going to share how you can make the switch to a circular economy within your business right now. Over to you, Annie.
Thank you for the lovely introduction, Sarah. I'm just getting share my screen now. Share. Okay, I'm just check how everybody see my slides. Okay. Excellent. Thank you for the lovely intro, Sarah, and thanks to Waverley Council for inviting me along for this small business webinar. I'm so honored to be here today. So my topic will focus on a circular economy, obviously. Firstly, I will talk about where does circular economy come from, what is it, and where we're up to now, and how it links to New South Wales waste and resources strategy, and how that, and then I will provide a couple of circular business case studies at the end. So where does the circular economy come from? It's very interesting. I've been in this sector for the last few years. I only heard one person ask this question. So where does the circular economy come from? The concept of circular economy originally came from an economist, Ken Dodin, in 1966, who developed an idea of a closed economy where materials remain as long as possible in the economy. That has now one of the circular economy core principles. I won't go through the whole journey because of my time, but I really want to highlight that in 2010, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation was launched to accelerate the transition into a circular economy. Almost all the businesses, government, and academics are cited their work. If you want to learn more about circular economy in detail, please go to Ellen MacArthur Foundation's website to find more information. Of course, you can also find more information on Go Circular website as well. So what is the circular economy? One of the easiest way to explain what a circular economy is to compare it with the current take waste linear economy that we have today. It's built to produce waste and pretty much designed for landfill. We know most of the products that reached at the end of its life, it will at some point end up in landfill. Fast-moving consumer goods, for example, when you go shopping in the mall over the weekend or Christmas, 90% of what you buy will be in landfill within 6 months. Another part of our challenge is the convenience of the single use, and we have had that narrative for quite some time. A circular economy, on the other hand, is looking more of that cradle to cradle view. How do we design waste out, whether that waste is waste of materials or pollution? We also want to cascade materials in those products through multiple cycles, so moving away from single-use approach. Compared with the linear economy, a truly circular economy is driven by renewables. That's why we have seen this massive shift globally towards renewable energy. So circular economy is basically looking more at a system level. It's a system transition. That's why you have seen lots of conversations and trainings about what a circular economy, what's the system thinking for a circular economy or design thinking for a circular economy. I won't go through all of them, but go to check out Ellen MacArthur Foundation website. You can find more information about it. So circular economy is basically based on 3 key principles. One is design out waste and pollution, keep products and material in use as long as possible at their highest value, and regenerate natural systems. With a circular economy, goods cycle through 2 main types of metabolism flows instead of letting them end up in landfill. So I really love to show this butterfly diagram. It is a powerful image that helps us to understand the application of a circular economy model in practice. So you can see the left side is biological loop, where it has the ability to compose when returned to nature, like food, paper, cotton. On the right side, you can say compost when taking the loop. It's more about sharing, maintaining, reuse, and recycle. It's actually the least desirable option. So circular economy is not really recycling economy. I always need to emphasize on that one. So where we're up to now, just a quick overview about where we are now in terms of circular economy in Australia, especially in New South Wales. Since China soared back in 2018, federal and state government have been introducing circular economy related policies. For example, New South government published Too Good to Waste in 2019. Federal government provided 1.6 million to set up Australia Circular Economy Hub run by Planet Arc in 2020. They also have hosted the Australia's first circularity conference last week, where Minister of Environment, Water Tanya has announced to set up a ministerial circular economy advisor group. This again will accelerate Australia's shifting to a more circular economy. In addition, last year, New South Wales government published New South Wales Waste and Sustainable Materials Strategy. So I will refer to WASM 2041 from now on. So it's about 44 pages documents where circular economy has been used over 100 times. It's a very practical document. I really encourage everybody on this call to read it. So here is some of the highlight of the strategy. It has a significant impact on business. For example, freezing out single-use plastic items. We know New South Wales government banned more single-use plastic items that effect from 1st of November. What does that mean to you? What does it mean to hospitality sector? Have you prepared yourself, your business, or your staff for it? Another example is about food waste. So according to Department of Agriculture, Australia generates 7.3 tons of food waste per year. It's about $20 billion worth. So the strategy has also highlighted by 2025, New South Wales government will target businesses who are generating the highest volumes of food waste, including supermarket and hospitality businesses. So again, what are the impact for the food sector and related business? Another big one is government circular procurement. So I won't go into that one for now, but we can discuss later in a Q&A session. So think about how those have impact on your business if you do not act now. In the meantime, you can say the strategy also provide fundings to back up your circular innovative. So the strategy also highlighted the design out of waste. That is based on one of the circular economy principles. But how can we do that? Firstly, I would encourage you to ask the question of what is my area of influence? I believe we each constructively effect change in our individual agency. For example, if you are a client, ask for designing a new business model, such as renting, sharing, buy it back, design a new coffee cups, or maybe we don't need more coffee cups. When you eat at a local restaurant, ask where they got their food come from. If you're a designer, ask your suppliers to change the materials, redesign a circular product. If you are a procurement manager, ask for changing the price, transparency on how product and services have been made. So basically mapping out what can you do as an individual or business to get the waste out of the system, move from reductionism to circularity. Here are a couple of case studies on design waste out of system in hospitality sector. I actually grew up in a restaurant, so I always passionate about food waste issues in hospitality sector. Go Circular recently conducted a material flow study for Hamilton Campus Cafeteria. We did a very rigorous auditing on its food waste and other general waste. And then our study found that the campus does not generate much of food packaging waste because the procurement manager source their food locally and they require no plastic packaging so that they do not generate much plastic packaging waste at their business practice. Another example, which Sarah mentioned a bit earlier, it's a local Bondi cafe called Brew Coffee. Oh my God, I just literally love their business initiative. They are the first and only coffee in Bondi that no longer use disposable cups. They encourage customers to bring their own coffee cups. They have their circular mark library for the last 3 to 4 years. They purchase their marks from Venice or through donations. As you can see, the social and environmental impact of those initiatives. They also install jogger system for milk so that they can reduce the plastic milk bottles. This is a perfect example of design waste out of their business system. Please, if you want to learn more of the case study, please go to check out FILE website. There is so many hospitality related innovative case studies. What's next? Firstly, I would encourage you to talk to your next door business. Talk to people like Sandra from Brew Coffee, building up a circular business ecosystem around you. Secondly, find out what are the initiatives that your local community or local government area is doing. For example, Waverley Council is going to start swap and go reusable container trial. Reach out to them and find out how can you be part of it? How can you be involved in that ecosystem? So to conclude, circular economy is not my theory, as I showed at the beginning of my presentation. The opportunity of circular economy is being increasingly adopted worldwide by business leaders and policymakers. If you want to be part of the circular economy, start where you can influence. Thank you so much.
Annie, that was wonderful. And you know what? You were only 1 or 2 minutes over. Annie did warn us she might be a little longer. Well done. And I'm so glad you brought up the local cafe brew. As I mentioned in my introduction, Sondi and I launched the BYO Cup campaign. We have had a very interesting, wonderful relationship and friendship through the campaign. It kicks off again, of course, tomorrow. But she went all out in July and just got rid of all disposable cups, single-use cups. And I'm just going to point out to everybody listening, Brew Cafe is a takeaway only cafe. Okay, so I think if they can do it as a takeaway cafe owner, then I think really anybody can do it. It's a really wonderful example, and watch this space because she keeps inventing the ways that she can do it. One thing I'm going to point out is if you're in a restaurant that serves bread, always ask the table if they want bread. The number of times I see bread brought out and butter and all the rest, and then only to be tossed out because people don't want it, it drives me mad. And just to add to Annie's point, if food waste were a nation, it would be the 3rd biggest CO2 emitter on the planet after the US and China. So there is incredible opportunities to make a difference as a hospitality owner. Okay, let's move on to our next speaker. And once again, thank you so much, Annie, for that information. Anthony Weinberg is the Regional Environment Program Manager at Waverley, Woollahra and Randwick Councils. And we're so lucky to have him here because he's an incredibly passionate agitator in this space. He designs programs for businesses like yours so that you don't have to do it on your own. It's an incredible resource, and he's going to show what you can do to affect the savings, okay? I'm just going to make a note that the Waverley Council are in the chat room. They are putting up links if you've got sort of thoughts as to wanting more information on some of the stuff that the speakers are already speaking about. And of course, please go into the Q&A section and post your questions. I think there are going to be a bunch for Anthony. Anthony, over to you.
Thanks so much, Sarah. That's a great introduction. I'm just going to share my screen. Make sure everyone can see it. Okay. So as Sarah said, I've been working across Waverley, Woollahra and Randwick councils for a while, and during COVID, we wanted to help support small businesses who were recovering, and we thought we would design a program that would help our local cafes because they are such hubs of our community. And we designed a program called Energy Smart Cafes. But before I get into it, I just wanted to, for all the businesses here, I know there are a lot of passionate businesses, I wanted to give you a bit of a tip of some great information, a great resource called Energy Cut. And it was a few years ago, this was put out by and sponsored by the Australian government. And it's a great resource. It's an online book. It's extremely easy to access, and you can do look up whatever. Ooh, sorry, I'm just gonna reshare. Sorry. Whoop. You're right. That one. Okay. Sorry, I was just sharing the wrong screen and Eleanor just came over, which is great. Yeah, so this book is an excellent resource. You can look it up chapter by chapter. Just to show you, it's got about 20 different steps and things you can go through, and you can just do what floats your boat. If you have things like access to your roof space and things like solar, you can do major infrastructure things. If there are lighting or energy efficiency, refrigeration, things you can do. Otherwise, there's a whole bunch of ways you can reduce, even if you're an office space small business, there's a whole bunch of ways you can reduce your energy use and save major dollars. So I think we'll pop that link to the book in the chat, and I encourage you to look that up post the meeting. So on to Energy Smart Cafes. Well, this is a bit of a controversial slide, but contrary to popular belief, the #1 impact in cafes isn't paper cups or plastic cups, I should say. We have done some research or commissioned some research with a guy called Dr. Coffee, who is a major ambassador for responsible cafes as well. And he's done a life cycle analysis of a typical cafe in Australia, which is sort of looking at all the inputs into a cafe and all the outputs. And what he's found was that when you actually look at it, electricity is the #1 contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. Obviously, there's other waste issues which are really important for just cups and litter and plastics, which are really important. So I was trying to be a bit controversial. I don't mean to downplay the importance of coffee cups, but electricity in terms of greenhouse gas emissions is the #1 impact. And that's why we thought it'd be a really good target for council's work. So why save energy? Or why are we interested in helping cafes save energy? Well, in terms of carbon emissions, as I've mentioned, the retail sector is the second largest sector for emissions in the eastern suburbs, at about 14% of the total emission. We spoke to a lot of cafes when we designed this program and walked up and down Bondi Road, and we found out that, look, as much as they want new customers in the door, their bottom line's extremely important, and if they can save money on their electricity bills, it's going to be a major saving for them. A lot of these cafes, as you know, are small businesses and owner operators. We were surprised at how much their electricity bills were, and we've found that's between $8,000 and $20,000 a year, and that being a small business, you pay quite high electricity tariffs. So it's quite a decent proportion of your expenses. And then finally, look, no one likes to waste anything, and that includes energy. So we've been working with about 30 cafes now, and we've done a couple of rounds of a trial, and I saw Brew was mentioned here, and just want to shout out to them. They're one of the cafes that we've been working with. And what we found was overall we could save big range, but between $2,800 and $11,500 per cafe per year, which sort of on average worked out at about 26% of their electricity costs and 16% of their emissions. This costs council an average of just over $1,000 a cafe. And I just want to mention there, we are recruiting new cafes to join the program next year. So if you are interested, please contact me afterwards. So what is the sort of stuff we do? Well, we send a refrigeration technician in who's a bit of an expert in optimizing efficiency and performance of refrigeration units. And this is the sort of stuff we find: door sills and compressors really covered, and coils sort of really covered in fluff. And we do sort of maintenance checks and also train the cafe owners on how they can do some basic maintenance themselves, which will save them a lot of money going forward. We also we also install coffee machine and hot water timers. So, a lot of cafes have machines that stay on 24/7, and by installing a timer on the machine that switches it off when it's not in use and switches it back on in the morning, ready for first service, or an hour before first service, can saved on the trial cafes we dealt with over $700 per year, and cost around $700 per unit. So it's something that pays for itself. Hot water systems, similarly, like a lot of them are oversized and can be switched off when not operational. Very often they're just connected to hand washing, which doesn't require a lot of hot water. Look, lighting was interesting. Cafes by and large had LED lighting, which is great and super efficient, but we found a lot of feature lighting that wasn't LED. So here's an example of the sort of lighting that we replaced. So there was a 25-watt Edison bulb, which is in a lot of cafes is their feature lighting, costs about $19 and only lasts for about 2,000 hours. We were able to find a really suitable, similar looking style replacement. I actually think it looks better, costs $10 more, but lasts 40 times as long, and uses about 85% less electricity. So when we did this lighting replacement for Shook, and we're able to save them just on electricity costs alone, over $1,000 a year. This is Shook Cafe in North Bondi, I should mention. And regardless, and this doesn't even take into account the cost of the actual bulb replacements that they were having to replace every 6 months, because these lights are on pretty much 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then just finally, probably the other major thing that we looked at was your electricity and gas tariffs, and seeing if we could get better deals for the cafe owners. So we used a company called Energy Umpire. Encourage you, anyone can use this company, and they're basically a specialized broker that can get you really good rates, better than what's sort of currently available. And we got cafes who we were able to save money to also purchase up to 50% green power with the savings that they made. So some of this data is a little bit old now, but at the time we're able to save over $4,000 on electricity bills per cafe using this, and also some substantial gas savings, which is also good for the cafes. So that's it from me. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to everyone. I really appreciate it. If you've got any further questions, or would like to sign up to the program, or know of any other cafes that would like to sign up to the program, please get in touch.
Okay, I'm just going to unmute myself. I've just got to wait for the questions to disappear. Okay, I'm unmuted. Hey, Anthony, that was awesome. Thank you so much for that. It's incredible how much money you can save by making simple tweaks. I was speaking to the panelists off air just before we started, and mentioned that I'm working on a campaign to get everyday Australians to understand that if they're about to renovate their kitchen, or they're doing they're building their house from scratch, to consider not installing gas for a whole bunch of reasons, mostly environmental, but also for the health of children. It's now been seen, we've discovered it's a very big cause of childhood asthma. It's the equivalent of having a full-time smoker in the home. So that's something to bear in mind. But one of the things that comes out of it is that chefs, what I should say is when people do make the switch, they save $1,900 a year. And in fact, they can pay for their induction stove in 5 years. And I'm sure you've got similar statistics for cafe owners in terms of the savings that can be made if they're renovating, if they're doing up their kitchen. I'm talking to chefs, the biggest chefs in the world on all of this, because there's a campaign to this effect. And they're all switching to induction. They're switching out of gas to induction. So that's one change that I think will start to be rolled out in restaurants and cafes around the country. But hey, listen, that was awesome. That was a really interesting chat. And I'm just going to remind everybody to go to the Q&A section as opposed to the chat section to put their questions in there. That's where I'll be looking at the questions at the end to put to the panelists. Okay, so our next speaker is Ed Cotter. He's the Executive Manager at Building Better Finance. And basically, he is going to show you how you can access finance to build environmental upgrades in your business. He has guided businesses like yours, including pubs and distilleries around Australia, including also the city of Greater Dandenong, which I think pushed it to be one of the most sustainable cities in Australia as a result of his work. He's been in this realm for the bulk of his career. He established the Bioregional Australia and co-founded One Planet Living and the Living Futures Institute of Australia. He has got a lot of information on how to go about getting financing for all of this kind of stuff. Over to you, Ed. Ed, you may need to unmute yourself. I'm not sure if everybody else can hear.
Thanks,
okay.
Sarah. Thanks for the prompt,
Awesome.
prompt as well. This has been really exciting, this webinar today. Didn't think I'd hear anything about life cycle analysis or the circular economy, so I'm absolutely wrapped. Ecological footprinting is something that's held close to my heart, and for all those cafe owners out there, they'll know that the impact of food waste and food loss is a massive one, and it's something that we can really focus on in terms of driving down our overall I guess the number of planets that we live on, or the ecological footprint. But that's not why I'm here today to talk about, and that's not what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about, so you've got a problem or you've got a project in mind. How are you going to fund it? How are you going to access the cash to actually make it happen and improve not only your sustainability performance, but also the way that your business operates and the cash flow that you've got coming through the door too. So what we do, Better Building Finance, we are an admin service provider that helps councils set up environmental upgrade finance programs. And I'll go into that in a little bit of detail in a minute. But before I go any further, I too just want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land of which I'm located and pay my respects to their elders past and present. Who are we and what do we do? We work with councils like the fantastic Waverley Council to make upgrade finance available for local businesses in the municipality. It's a unique form of finance, and I'll go into detail about that in a minute. We currently work with 73 councils across the 3 states in Victoria, South Australia, and New South Wales. And to date, we've helped unlock $43 million worth of investment that's seen the delivery of over 137 projects. That number's always ticking up constantly. As a result of these projects and the businesses that have invested through these projects and this funding mechanism, they've been able to save $127 million worth of operational costs as a result of that, but also next to that, drive down over 785,000 tonnes of CO2 emissions. So this funding mechanism, while it's another loan, simply put, is also a loan fit for purpose. It's an impact style loan. And what I'll talk about in a minute is how businesses are taking advantage of this type of funding and how councils are seeing the benefit and supporting their local businesses through this process. BBF is currently supported by ARENA, the Australian Renewable Energy Agency, and they help fund a lot of the work that we do. So that gives you a bit of understanding of who's supporting us and what drives us. Why do councils work with us? I don't know if you're across this or not. This is Beyond Zero Emissions Snapshot tool. It does emissions profiling for a range of different, pretty much every single council area throughout Australia. And most councils that are quite progressive, and Waverley is one of them that we work with, they're already on top of their corporate emissions. So they've got measures and strategies and plans in place, like the one you saw before, on how to actually drive down those emissions coming from their buildings, from their fleet, from their operations, et cetera, et cetera. But those emissions account for typically 1 to 2% of the total emissions in the city. So what else can they do? They need to find ways to help support their local community and their business community drive down emissions. And upgrade finance is just one of the fantastic ways that they can support their local business community. Here we see Mornington Peninsula Shire. I'm located in Mornington. It's my local patch. And this is the result of some of the work that they've done. They've been able to deliver 17 upgrade projects to date, installation over a meg of solar, plus a range of other benefits, but they've also helped generate substantial business savings and reduction of CO2 emissions for those businesses that have used this form of finance to fund their projects. So another good reason to understand why councils get involved and support their businesses through these programs. So what are some of the challenges facing these businesses? And you heard before from Emmanuel talk about a whole range of things that small businesses have to deal with. You have 1,000,001 things on your plate to consider. Everything from, are you getting out to the right customers? Are you attracting customers? How are you going about marketing? Are you meeting your regulatory obligations or compliance requirements? Have you paid tax recently? Have you prepared your BAS statement, POIG, et cetera, et cetera? There are so many things that you have to deal with. In addition to that, also cash flow, really important one. All right, profitability, cash flow. Do you have cash on hand? Enough cash on hand to deal with what's coming up this week, next month, this year, et cetera, et cetera. On top of that, there are a whole range of really acute concerns that businesses, especially small businesses, need to deal with at this particular point in time. Rising inflation, higher interest rates, and increasing energy costs. And that's not even to touch on some of the broader factors that we've gone through quite recently and are still grappling with, including the pandemic, the impacts of climate change, and the war in Ukraine, which is having an effect on supply chains and the ability to get resources in or materials, or even for that, fresh produce in. One thing I will be drawing your attention to is if you can find a way to fund some of these projects and do it in such a way that is actually quite beneficial for your business. In other words, no cash up front from your own cash reserves. You can structure it in such a way that it becomes cash flow positive. In other words, invest money back into your business long term. So the examples that I'm about to walk you through will demonstrate how some of these businesses, and there's a bit of focus on solar, but they started with solar and then they moved beyond that in due course. I'll go into that in a second. So what is environmental upgrade financing? Quite simply put, it's a green loan for upgrades on a building, like a commercial, retail, or industrial property. It's the only form of finance that has to, by legislation, deliver a positive environmental outcome. And why is council involved? As well as doing something for their business community, they play a key role in securing the loan against the property by placing a charge. So that means that the loan sits on the property, not on the business. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute as well. This enables lenders to offer terms of up to 20 years. So that means you can structure the repayments in such a way that the actual savings more than cover the cost of repayments moving forward. And the way that it's collected by council alongside the rates and then repaid quarterly to the lender through that process. A really unique one, especially for smaller businesses, is that there's a mechanism in there that enables a tenant to take advantage of making a contribution to the repayments. So it helps both landlords and tenants come together to make an agreement on, okay, there's a range of things that they want to do for this particular property to keep the tenant in there, to make the business happy, but also there's a way so that the landlord's not paying directly for it themselves and the tenant's making that contribution to take advantage of the new initiative or the project that they've just delivered. This is just a diagram on how it works in comparison to traditional forms of finance. And you can see the left one there, the role of council in this process in terms of collecting the repayments, but then also how it might work with a tenant-landlord relationship. There's a few other terms that get bandied around, such as EUA or Environmental Upgrade Agreement. That's just the contract between the three parties. So council does join in on this in this process, and they do become a party to the contract at the end of the day. What type of projects can be funded? We see a huge array of projects that can be funded. It's also important to understand that most people start with solar, but then they could go beyond that. You might, for example, have a compliance issue that you need to deal with, whether it be food waste or trade waste or whatever that might be, that can be funded using upgrade finance. I won't go into too much detail, but everything from waste management systems to then looking at pollution control, or for that matter, if you're thinking about going into a new property and doing a fit out, as long as it's a sustainable fit out, that could be funded using upgrade finance. A great mechanism in there, especially when the landlord isn't willing to actually contribute to any upgrade or fit out costs that you might incur, and you don't necessarily want to have that as a capital cost and want that as part of your ongoing operational costs. This is a perfect form of finance for that sort of scenario. Busy table, I apologize. There's a lot going on in this table. What I will ask is that obviously we're going to share these slides, but I will draw your attention to the scenario that we're painting here. The teal column demonstrates upgrade finance against other forms of business finance or funding options, such as a commercial loan, like a secured chattel mortgage, which is a similar way that you might finance the funding of a car, or asset finance. We're looking at a 20 kilowatt system as our example here. Capital cost about 30 odd K and savings of about 6.5 per year. Down the bottom, under upgrade finance, a business might pick it because there's no cash required up front. The loan repayments can be staggered out over a lengthy period of time. So in this scenario, it's about $3,000 per year. And that means that the structure of it can be cash flow positive. So they're actually saving that business about 3.5K per year that they can reinvest back into their operations. So really important to understand. And that's one of the drivers why businesses might choose this form of finance. Couple of case studies now. This is Basson Flinders Distillery, located in Mornington. It's manufacturing and a bit of retail as well. They started with a 39 kilowatt solar system, and the total cost was about $30,000 if you take into account the discounts for rebates and small scale electricity certificates. They used an EUA to finance it over a 10-year period. As you can see, they're going to save over $4,000 per year as a result of that. They're now going back and having a look at a range of other options that they can put in place using this form of funding, such as batteries, EV charging, etc., etc. I highlight this one is because their operations are quite energy intensive. They run a couple of gin stills and they're looking to run it 24/7. And at the moment they can't because the energy costs are quite exorbitant. So they're looking to use batteries to help cover some of those energy costs in due course. Attune Healthcare, Lake Mac, Macquarie up on the mid-north coast of New South Wales. They take a holistic approach or an integrated approach to both health as well as sustainability, which is fantastic. They started with a 73 kilowatt system and they used an upgrade agreement loan to fund that project. Quite a lot of electricity consumed by this facility. They're going to save close to $16,500 per year as a result of this little project. They've now gone back and had a look at a couple of other upgrade options. They're looking at their pool and they're also looking at lighting and HVAC and other things like that. A smaller one, this could be anywhere. This is Glenfern Dental in Knox, in Ferntree Gully in Victoria. They used an EUA loan to fund a small 12.6 kilowatt system. And again, I draw your attention down the bottom to the fact that they're going to save about 2.5K per year, only a 5-year loan, but still they've been able to structure in such a way that it's cash flow positive too. And then finally, I'll draw your attention to just a laundry located in Hobson's Bay, Altona, west of Melbourne. Again, they started off with a solar system, 30 kilowatt system, final cost a tad under 20K, used a EUA loan to fund it over a 10-year period and substantial savings. So, close to $5,000 per year as a result of this project. They've now gone back and looking at doing a changeover of all their machinery as well and using an EUA loan to fund that as well. So these are just some of the examples of projects that you could fund if you're interested in going ahead and doing that. Where do you start and how do you get started? Well, if you've got a project in mind, follow the link below. If you don't have a project in mind, get in contact with the team at Waverley, have a conversation with them, and they might be able to provide you with some great advice. There's a lot of fantastic people that do work there. And if need be, we can also help out and point you in the right direction too. So that's it for me, Sarah.
Awesome. I'll just make sure that I'm off mute. I certainly am. Hey, Ed, that was really helpful and interesting. I'm not into finance stuff, but I find it really fascinating, and it's sort of almost counterintuitive that you might want to take out a loan for 20 years and that would be of benefit, but you explain it well, and I appreciate it. Now, look, we're a little bit over, not too far, and there are some questions that have come through. Some have come through on the chat and a couple in the Q&A box. If you have questions for any of the panelists, please put them in there and I'll take a look in a moment. But I might just kick off, actually, Anthony, I've got a question for you. You have that brochure, the Energy Cut brochure, produced by John D, and with the 20 steps. And I'm just wondering if you can actually articulate what would be the most no-brainer, substantive change that, say, for instance, a cafe, because I think there's a lot of cafe owners listening here, that they could make as a first step from a sustainability point of view, but also from a cash point of view, a savings point of view? Yeah,
good question. The number one thing I think you do is look at your electricity bill and gas bill, and if you have one, and understand it. Understand how much it's costing you, not just, per month or per quarter, but per year, and seeing where you can reduce it. Like every dollar you save goes into your hip pocket, and I would use like an energy broker like Energy Umpire to actually get you the best deal, knowing how much electricity prices are going to increase next year, which is about 30%, and they're due to increase about 20-30% the year after. And I would take some of those savings and I'd buy green power with them, because that's going to have the biggest impact on reducing your emissions. And then the other low cost thing I think I would do is, as you said, Sarah, is just prepare for a future without sort of gas, and also how are you going to replace your existing equipment with more efficient options. So just get ready for that and be prepared and have a bit of a plan, because when it happens and your refrigeration breaks or your air conditioning breaks, it's often in a panic, and you just have to go with whatever's available at the time. But if you a bit strategic about it and plan in advance, then you can end up with a more sustainable and more efficient option.
Long term. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that answer. There's a couple of questions that have come through in the Q&A, and there's one that's actually directed to Waverley Council. And what I might get somebody from Waverley to do is actually answer it in the chat. I might as well flag it. It's I've seen Waverley Council's amazing transport hierarchy showing the priorities for transport solutions, which I think is a really great initiative. And this person has asked whether Waverley would consider a similar climate impact hierarchy, almost answering the question I put to you, Anthony, as to what would be a sort of step-by-step list of priorities that local businesses could enact, with links and that kind of thing. There's a challenge for you, Eleanor and the team at Waverley. I think that's a great one. A 10-point plan to instigate straight away, I think would be really helpful. So I'll ask if somebody would like to answer that in the chat. That might be a way to go about it. I'm going to put a question to you, Annie, just regarding the circular economy stuff. You gave us a good explanation of what it is, but I'm wondering what a business can do to take the first step. What have you seen that has been enacted that you think is a really sensible first step that a business can take to get into this? Because as we all know, once you take that first step, then you get into the mindset and it becomes a little bit addictive, right? And then you keep going and going and you try the harder things. So what would be a really good entry point, the gateway drug into circular economy thinking and business practices?
Thank you, Sarah. That's a great question. As I mentioned in my presentation, I think we don't need to reinvent the wheel, actually. So much circular economy activities, innovations happening around us. All you need to do is just start a conversation. Ask your next door business what they've been doing. And then you might find out what their waste can be your resources. That's how you really close that loop as well. So I think as a first step for everybody, either individual or the business, just start a conversation. Do not reinvent the wheel. Just use that resources that contextualize that fit to your business.
Okay, awesome. Amy Lynch, who I think owns a bar in Waverley, has also asked if there are people who can consult with local businesses in person. It's time consuming as a business owner, absolutely. And obviously as a business owner, you're working in business hours, making it so hard to contact experts in the field, to go through info on a website and find out what's applicable. I think all panelists could answer this one. I think so too. I'm kind of interested in many ways as to how, let me see, I'm just trying to remember what speaker was speaking a little to this. I suppose it's you, Anthony, in terms of what could, and I had a question to this effect as well. Do you go in and actually handhold businesses through this?
Yeah, with the cafes, we definitely do. So we meet with them, we do a simple energy assessment, and then we organise all those technicians to come, electricians and coffee machine timers and refrigeration technicians and also those sort of reports for their electricity tariffs from energy umpires. So it's really like you sign up, and the idea is to put on a platter for the small business and make it as simple as possible for the cafes. But you know what? I'm sure the team at Waverley would love to hear if there are small businesses out there that wanted to save on their emissions and wanted to reduce their environmental impact, and we could work at a way to help you with waste or energy or whatever it was you're looking to do.
Okay, that's really good to know. Like when you were talking through the light bulb changes and things like that, I mean, they're really great initiatives and ideas, but it sounds like you were working with Shook and Yoni and the team to find those solutions. Do I have that right? Just so that everybody is aware of exactly what service you offer.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, we thought we can't look at everything, and we didn't want to look at things that are in the kitchen because cafes do things a specific way, and we just want to look at things that we could quickly and easily change. So yeah, lighting, hot water systems, coffee machines and refrigerations and their electricity bills were the 5 things that we wanted to look at. But there are a whole bunch of other changes that a cafe can make as well.
Okay. All right, now Ed, I'm going to throw a question to you on the finance side of things. What do you think is the biggest factor stopping businesses from taking this step and actually utilising the information and the services that you offer? I mean, you work with some of the best environmental and climate organisations in Australia. You're backed by ARENA and a whole range of organisations I really support and put credence to. But what is stopping people from going ahead and doing this, apart from perhaps not even knowing about it? Oops. We might need to get you, Ed, are you still there? You might need to take yourself off mute and put yourself on video. There you are. Off mute if you could.
Sorry, unstable internet connection. So you're asking a question about where to start.
Yeah, or more so what people gets in the way of people making the first step. Like, are there barriers? Is it just that they don't know about it?
It's just knowledge. Knowledge on where to start is the biggest issue. And as a small business owner, you've got so much to grapple with and deal with, as we heard before from one of the attendees, that, having someone there to support you through that process is probably essential to this whole thing. But knowing where to start is the biggest factor. I would start by asking around within your networks, talking to people that you see on a regular basis. Have they done this? Do they know anything about that? Where should they start? Who should they talk to? Who's a trusted advisor that they've worked with before? If not, I give the council a call as well. So for those that are in the Waverley area, council's a great resource. Give them a call, pick up the phone, ask to talk with one of the team here that's on the call and involved in the webinar today. And I'm sure they'd be more than happy to help get you started. But having a knowledge on where to start, I see that as the biggest barrier. But just start somewhere, start anywhere, do something.
So you're saying that's in terms of actually starting with some kind of either circular initiative or sustainable initiative in your business. But in terms of going ahead and getting finance help, I imagine it would be going and filling in that questionnaire that takes 20 minutes. Is that right?
Pretty much. Jump online, find out if you're eligible, and start that application process. Once you know what you need to do, then start that application process.
And can I just ask, I would imagine your website would be another great place to go and see case studies. Are they clearly outlined on your website so that people can actually go and get inspiration and go, oh, I could actually apply that here in my business in Bondi or Bronte or whatever it might be?
Absolutely. There's a whole list on council's website under the page that they've got dedicated to upgrade finance, or you can go to our website as well, or go to that apply online page and have a look there.
Awesome. All right. That's really good to know. Well, listen, we're right on 5, and I do want to make sure we have time to do a little bit of a wrap. The questions are great. Waverley, I think, are answering some of those questions that pertain to the Waverley Council. But up on the screen there, you'll see an end of webinar poll. It's true or false, pretty easy to just go through it. It reminds me of my days editing Cosmopolitan magazine, where we used to run these kinds of polls. People love a Q&A. So if you could go through those just as we're wrapping up here, it'd be awesome if you can give that feedback. The council can then use that information to ensure that they can be of further assistance to you down the track. And as you fill that in, I'm sure that you're getting through it. It's, have I learned about ways I can make sustainability improvements? I understand what the circular economy is. Thank you, Annie. And so on and so forth. It's invaluable feedback. It takes 2 seconds. And I am now going to hand over to Emmanuel, who is going to do a little bit of a wrap up and also give an insight into what next and some exciting stuff that Waverley is working on, which I encourage all of you to get involved in, because this is a way to connect with people and have those conversations. And influence where you are, just to use Annie's language there. It's been great to be part of this. I will probably see you in the neighbourhood sometime soon. I don't own a car, I walk everywhere, so there's always opportunities to come and say hello and talk to me about this stuff. I liaise with a lot of these businesses. I know what a lot of them are doing, and I'm very happy for any of you to come up and have a chat with me, or sing out if I come and sit at your cafe sometime soon. Emmanuel, over to you. It's been wonderful chatting, everybody. Go forth and do great green stuff. Our kids are relying on it. Emmanuel.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you so much. And what wonderful speakers and questions that were asked are very relevant to the situation. So once again, look, the Council has set ambitious environmental targets. I'll remind you again, net zero community emissions by 2035, 80% increase in recovery rate from all waste streams by 2030, and supporting the community transitions to a circular economy. So like Sarah said, so what are the next steps you can take? 1, to reduce waste. We encourage you to sign up to Waverley Council's Swap and Go program to reduce single-use packaging for food takeaway. Number 2, if you are a cafe owner or know of a cafe and have been operational for more than 3 years, sign up to Waverley's Energy Smart Cafes program for other businesses. Check out for the 20 steps guide to cutting energy bills and have a plan to make an energy efficient, sustainable switches when things break. As an example, appliances, hot water systems, etc., just to name a few. And 3, finance a sustainable upgrade. Check out the business is eligible, identify what you want to do that has a measurable environment benefit, and apply online at Sustainable Australia Fund. And of course, for more information on any of the program above, email environmental@waverley.newsouthwales.gov.au. Once again, everybody, on behalf of Waverley Council and the Bondi District Chamber of Commerce, Sarah Wilson and our panelists, we thank you for being online today. Bye-bye.